Welcome back to That's DPI. I'm Tyler, and this is Zach, and we are nearing the end of our first season as your local Chiefs and Lions fans. And it just so happens that our inaugural season is the first time since 2012 that neither of our teams were in the playoffs.
Yes, I was a child, and Tyler was just starting to get his degree in college. And
Okay, wait a minute.
We've got Unk on the podcast, but we have so much
Okay.
planned for you guys. But unfortunately, we did not think through the fact that there was a possibility that both of our teams would just decide to crap the bed and miss the playoffs the first season we do this podcast. So we are going to be forced to be unbiased observers here in the playoffs. But before we talk playoffs, we have our ref call of the week. We also have coverage about Black Monday. All of the coaches that got fired, we're going to break it down for you. And I have a fun activity for Tyler and I to debate about said fired coaches. And then at the end of the episode, we will do a full playoff bracket and predictions for each of us. But without further ado, we've got our final regular season ref call of the week. And it's another doozy, Tyler.
It's a pass interference call, correct?
It is. It is unfortunately not DPI. It is OPI. So I think that we can't make the age-old joke.
We have to figure out if that's OPI this week.
That's OPI. We're changing all of the branding on the podcast. I'm sorry if you already bought your merch. That's OPI now. But this is Teteroy McMillan. He's the rookie wide receiver going up against a fellow rookie corner. I thought I muted it. And kind of gives a little hump move like Reggie White, makes a great grab down the field, and a late flag comes in for offensive pass interference. But before we break down the clip, Tyler, I want to read what head referee Brad Allen has to say about this call. As the question...
So just to clarify, this was offensive pass interference. That was the call.
Correct. It was called offensive pass interference on that play, and then he was later asked about it in the pool report. I don't think Brad Allen threw the flag, but he was certainly interviewed about it. So what was seen on the offensive pass interference call against Carolina that negated the long pass completion in the third quarter? Allen said, the covering official saw that the receiver created separation more than 1 yard downfield, which by rule is illegal and is offensive pass interference. So we have debated the rules back and forth a lot of what is permissible, what is not permissible. What do you see here on this play, Tyler? I can slow it down because it comes in a little quick here.
So obviously there's contact that creates separation, and it's ticky-tacky, but I would agree it is beyond 1 yard off the line of scrimmage. It's 2 yards, but I mean, by letter of the law, I think it is.
I think what's frustrating to me is, like, yes, there is contact here within a yard, and then there's this kind of like hump move, but he doesn't even really make contact. He's just swiping the hands. The defender does get moved a lot. This is just because Ted McMillan's so dang big. He's kind of getting punished here.
Yeah, and watching it live, I'm not sure if I would want... If I was a Panthers fan, I would certainly not want that call. Because you're right, there's just a swipe. There's not a massive shove. But it kind of goes back to that age-old saying of there's a penalty every single play if you really want to officiate the rules to a T.
Certainly, and I think that's a good example as to that very expression coming to fruition. However, if we were to call this offensive pass interference, I would reference specifically Article G or Element G of Article 2, which is, as longtime listeners would know, Article 2 is prohibited acts by both teams while the ball is in the air. So item G says initiating contact with an opponent by shoving or pushing off, thus creating separation. I believe this is what Brad Allen is referencing. And at the very bare bones level, you could argue that at 3 yards downfield, maybe even 2 where he's standing, he initiated the contact, which is very frustrating because it's just so close to not being offensive pass interference, I feel like. And even if I think this is called like one time out of 20 honestly. Like that's how infrequently a call like this is called.
Now, that pool report actually taught me something. I thought it was 5 yards.
Yeah, I also thought it was 5 yards because that's how pick plays I thought were officiated. And I thought also when you got a guy screaming across the middle and the backer hits him, if it's inside 5 yards, I thought that was also legal. But
yeah. So maybe that's just a defensive thing. Maybe defense gets 5 yards, offense gets 1.
yeah, because I'm looking in the rules here. But here in Article 1, it says acts that do not occur more than 1 yard beyond the line of scrimmage are not
Okay.
pass interference, but could be
Interesting.
offensive or defensive holding. So pass interference is absolutely. Wait a minute. This was called offensive pass interference.
Yeah.
The ball's not in the air, right?
Read the rule one more time.
Article 2 says prohibited acts by both teams when the ball's in the air. The ball is not thrown here. This is a terrible call. The ball's not in the air. The ball hasn't been thrown. Look, he's not even tracking it until here. And then the ball is thrown. This is a bad call. You're allowed to hand fight. This is horrible.
You're right. So once again, Brad Allen's team just...
Hold on. Defensive pass interference rules apply from the time the ball is thrown until the ball is touched. Offensive pass interference rules apply from the time the ball is snapped until the ball is touched.
Oh,
so
there it is.
Brad Allen is correct. Offensive pass interference can happen as long as it's beyond 1 yard and the ball has been snapped. So basically, as soon as the receiver gets off the line. Man, that sucks.
I still think this is too ticky-tacky, though, to really call it. I don't like that this is called, but we can't say it's wrong.
Right. Like, I think it would be akin to, a corner pressing a receiver and then accidentally drifting 2 yards down the field and calling DPI there. I don't like that. Like, I think if you're engaged in a press, it's the receiver's job to get off of it. And if you fail a press by the receiver swiping you, that's not offensive pass interference. That's the receiver doing what is necessary to get off the press. Like I think it's regardless. I think it shouldn't have been called, but there is justification for it being called, regardless of how ticky-tacky it is. Sorry for that tangent. I thought it was a bad call, but we all learn something a little bit every once in a while. The ball does not have to be in the air for OPI to be offense. A factor. But
which does make sense though, because like in theory, like if you just shove the guy, create that separation, and the quarterback, oh, he's open now, and then throws it. Yeah, that's offensive pass interference.
Right. That you know what? In hindsight, it makes a lot more sense. But we always talk about, hey, the ball wasn't even in the air yet, so it's like defensive holding or illegal contact or something like that. But those are only really they're mostly defensive calls, I would say. Offensive holding on a receiver is quite rare. But no more refs. I don't like talking about Brad Allen anyway, but we will this offseason. I promise it's coming.
I can't wait for playoff. I cannot wait for playoff ref breakdowns. I wish that's DPI was going on during the Rams Saints pass interference call.
Yeah, or if we go back to 2014, when the Lions were actually in the playoffs, we could break down the Brandon Pettigrew pass interference that wasn't, because the flag was thrown and then picked up for no reason. That call was big, and it was right before the Dez caught it one. So we would have had 2 back-to-back weeks of excellent coverage. But
we do have a whole offseason to talk about stuff in the past.
Maybe the offseason is we do one Lions ref call every week, because there's so many to choose from.
That's fair. There are a lot.
But some head coaches were let go this past week, 7 to be exact. In the first one, I mean, the dude barely got off the team plane. Raheem Morris in Atlanta was fired pretty much as soon as the Falcons won their final game. And they also fired the GM, which Tyler, our friend who is a Falcons fan, is happy about the coach, not so happy about the GM. But what do you think about these 2 firings conjoined together?
Raheem Morris, absolutely. I mean, this isn't a shock. The fact that it was just hours after the game was a little shocking. I thought it would at least wait until Monday morning, but the firing is not shocking. I am shocked about the GM though. Our local Falcons fan friend says that really it was the Kirk Cousins deal that sunk his career. And I agree with that. I think he made a lot of good draft picks. Particularly most notably Drake London. I thought that's a good pickup. It's bold to draft Michael Penix, but that again goes back to the Kirk Cousins situation.
To be
If you
fair, it was
take away the
bold to
Kirk Cousins
draft Bijan
situation,
Robinson as well, or a top
yeah,
10 running back, right?
yeah, who is a fantasy football winner this year alone. So I really do think that quarterback situation really is what killed him. But you and I have talked about the key to success is starting over. Hire the GM hires the coach, and then the coach goes to get that quarterback. We're a little dicey with the Falcons because they have Michael Penix. We'll see what happens, but yeah.
Yeah, I everything you said about Raheem Morris is correct. He was a poor game manager, and I don't think he was a very good head coach. The GM is a little confusing because yes, was the Kirk Cousins deal bad in hindsight? Was signing a late 30s quarterback coming off an Achilles injury the right choice for the franchise? Probably not, right? And they shouldn't have given him that much money after that injury. But they were desperate. They had not yet got Michael Penix, right? So they had to do something at quarterback. So I didn't hate the swing for Kirk. And even down the stretch this season, I thought he looked decent. So, but it obviously never panned out. But I think the biggest reason that both of these guys were fired is because they couldn't win the most putrid division that football has to offer, right? If the bar for success is so low in your division, like the Falcons had the division winner of the NFC South, the Carolina Panthers, finished with a losing record. And the fourth place team in the NFC North, my Detroit Lions, finished higher than them in record. That's unacceptable. Come on. Win your trash division. And if the GM and the coach couldn't do that, fine, restart. Let's get two guys who are on the same page.
And I'm looking back a little bit at the tenure of Terry
Fontenot.
And there's a reason Falcons fans just call him Scary Terry. He doesn't have the best record. He drafted Drake London and Bijan Robinson. That's great. But the Falcons have not been that successful with him as a GM. His son is also the one who leaked Sanders' number. Am I correct on that?
Oh, I think that may be right. And
Or was it a defensive coach?
That I don't remember, but he
No,
also
it was the GM because it was the GM because it was Sanders, right?
Right. And he also
So there is a little bit of baggage with him.
And he also is the GM that got caught tampering and cost the Falcons a draft pick because they tampered with Kirk Cousins, if you remember that.
Yeah. So as much as our Falcons fan friend liked Scary Terry, yeah, there's a little bit of skeletons in his closet that I think the Falcons didn't want to keep dealing with.
Yeah, I mean, it's been a lot of losing for Atlanta. I mean, they finished like 7-10 the last 5 years. It feels like since 2020 when they finished 4-12. It's just literally been 7-10.
When did he start with the Falcons?
I'm not entirely sure.
Here, I've got it right here now. He became the Atlanta Falcons general manager in 2021.
Okay, so right after that 4-12 season, right?
Mm-hmm.
They went 7-10, 7-10, 7-10, 8-9, 8-9. Yeah, probably time to go.
You know? Yeah, while having cost the team a draft pick through tampering and cost the team a fine through his son leaking the phone number of Shedeur Sanders.
And tied his team to a ridiculously loaded contract to an aging, injured quarterback.
Fair point. And then drafting a quarterback immediately after doing so.
Look, could he have turned out to be a good GM if they got the coaching position right? Maybe. But how valuable is it to have the GM and the coach hired at the same time?
Mm-hmm.
Be on the same page from day one. I think it's invaluable. I think the teams that do that succeed. very quickly. So I like this from the
I
Falcons.
agree. It's a very clear method, and I think that's what the Dolphins are doing.
Right. They haven't yet let go of Mike McDaniels, but they did let go of their GM. Did Mike McDaniel save his job by winning out down the stretch almost?
Well, once they hire their new GM, I think that's when the decision's going to be made. I think once they hire a new GM, there's a very good chance that the new GM is then going to evaluate Mike McDaniels, and maybe he keeps him, or maybe he goes to get his own guy.
Sure. And well,
we'll keep an eye on that.
Certainly. And I think that this is a good conversation to kind of table and talk about a little bit later, because we've got something cooking for this. But our next coach that was fired was a coach that we talked about. We made some shorts about. We discussed coaches on the hot seat, and we said, this guy's got to go. So for you Cardinals fans that subscribe to us after that short, we appreciate you. And now we correctly predicted that your coach would be fired this year, although it wasn't like it was very controversial. He's got like a 15-36 record. The dude couldn't get it done. Jonathan Gannon of the Cardinals is gone. What do you think, Tyler?
Kind of like we said in that segment, I like that the Cardinals were going to let him stick it out through the year. But he's been with the Cardinals for a few years now. He just hasn't got it done. So similar to what we just said about the Falcons, Jim, he just hasn't been able to get it done. Maybe he could have gotten a new quarterback to do it, but in the 3-4 years he's been there, he hasn't done it. And so it's definitely time for the Cardinals to move on. Go get the new coach. The Cardinals have the 3rd overall draft pick as well. And when you consistently get top 10 draft picks, you're not going to stick around as a head coach.
Sure. And they also have kind of indicated that they're going to move on from Kyler Murray as well. They don't want him anymore. Don't blame them. He hasn't quite been exactly as he's propped up to be as a number 1 overall pick. So I'd expect them to take a swing for a veteran, because at pick 3, do you really want to go after a quarterback? I mean, we'll see in our draft breakdowns later this year that the quarterback class, it's slim pickings, to quote Sabrina Carpenter. When you want to draft somebody who's pro ready, that's not the number 1 overall pick. And I even have concerns about the guy projected to go number 1. But that's enough about Gannon. We've talked enough about this guy who was obviously getting fired. Here's a 1-season head coach that got fired. Just 1 season. Pete Carroll.
As a Chiefs fan, I love that. I love that Pete Carroll got fired after 1 year as a Chiefs fan. I would be ticked off if I was a Raiders fan, because they're about to spend $50 million next year on 5 coaches that don't coach for the Raiders, because they have fired so many coaches so recently after having paid them so many years of a contract, that they're about to pay for 6 head coaches next year. The 5 that they currently have under contract, plus whoever they hire. Plus, Pete Carroll's proven that he is a winning coach. Obviously, he didn't get it done this year. I don't think that coaching was the issue with the Raiders this year. I don't like that Pete Carroll got fired.
What do you think was the primary issue with the team currently holding the number 1 pick?
I think their quarterback. I think their quarterback was horrible. We talked about it last offseason. Like, hey, like, what, is Geno Smith really good? No. Geno Smith had 1 good year, two regular seasons ago now. And we even said I said even going into the season that I don't trust Geno Smith, and we were correct.
Yeah, I was of the impression that Geno was a little bit better than this, but I think they also dealt with some pretty rough injuries. Brock Bowers was out for a while. I mean, it's always tough to break in a rookie running back, getting used to the NFL speed of things. Even though Genty did really well, like he lived up to my expectations, over 1,000 yards, well over 1,000 yards, but just got to win games. And the Raiders did not put themselves in the position to win games late. And I don't blame them for getting rid of a 74-year-old coach who they hired to win now. You don't hire Pete Carroll and get a mid-30s age quarterback if you're like, hey, we're gonna build for the future, no. They hired him to win now, and he lost a lot. He lost later,
I
right?
think they should
So
have given him at least one more year, especially with the contracts, with the number of coaches that the Raiders have in their contract.
I think if he was like an Aaron Glenn style figure, he would have gotten another year. But because he's such a known quantity, it just looked like he was over the hill, honestly. Like I know that
Mm.
the team was really bad, but even bad teams, I think this year won a lot of games with good coaches. Look at the Vikings. That team had a league's worst quarterback than Geno Smith in every single game they played. It was either JJ, aging Carson Wentz, who was worse than Geno Smith, or Max Brosmer, and they had a winning record. Like I think that to a certain extent, if your team goes 2-14, the head coach is to blame. There was also a lot of people talking about the Raiders organization and how the offense met without coaches trying to figure out the issues of the offense because the assistants underneath Pete Carroll were so ineffective. Like this is a top-down organizational
That's
issue
fair then.
with the Raiders. And I think good. Get rid of him. He was a absolute just like dead weight, a log floating down the river, right?
Honestly, those are good arguments. I see where you're at. I just think that Pete Carroll, even with his age, I think he has done enough that it would make me think I can at least give him a second year. If I signed him for 3 years, at least keep him for the second year.
Yeah. And I think that if this first year goes a little bit better with the adversity, I think that happens. But because of how truly catastrophic it is, the Raiders were impatient and they were done. And I certainly don't blame them. But I understand where you're coming from. So let's say they went 7-10. I think Pete's around for one more year.
Oh yeah, absolutely.
But yeah, it's tough to defend a coach at 2-14 in their first year. Even Dan Campbell was better than that, and he like lost his first 10 games. So next up, Brian Daboll of the New York Giants. That was a midseason firing, of course.
Mm-hmm.
But
that one I disagreed with the midseason firing just because there was injuries with Scadaboo and Dart and just kind of uncertainty with how that. I don't like that they fired him midseason, but I do understand them not bringing him back. He was a very good, he was a very good offensive coordinator, and his time in New York just showed that he is not ready to be a head coach or is not capable of being a head coach in New York anyway.
Yeah, and I mean, to be fair, there's very few people who are capable of being a head coach in New York. That's a brutal, brutal market and fan base and press
it's
corps.
Tom Coughlin. That is it. That is the
I was gonna say
one.
end of list, right? And maybe Bill Parcells.
Yeah.
But
yeah, so two. There genuinely are only two people that are capable of being a good head coach in New York for both teams.
Yeah, it's pretty absurd that how bad, and you play at freaking MetLife, which ate Malik Neighbors, like just gobbled him up. He's gone.
Yeah.
Like that's terrible. So I hope that Brian Daboll goes somewhere and gets an offensive coordinatorship because I think that he is a great offensive mind and he would be wasted anywhere else outside of an offensive coordinatorship at a contender team. Maybe the Chiefs should look into him after they finally cut Matt Nagy. I think Brian Daboll would fit really well with Patrick Mahomes.
I think he would too, but there's a couple other candidates that I would not mind seeing the Chiefs go grab at offensive coordinator.
I was going to say, I think we may talk about one here. Not this guy, Brian Callahan, another midseason firing. I mean, we talked about
not that guy.
Yeah, we talked about him being on the hot seat, and then he was fired a week later. So we've said enough about this guy. He was miserable. He was going to stunt the growth of Cam Ward. This is one of the only times that I think I might defend the firing a coach during the rookie season of a quarterback, just because Brian Callahan as a coach was so indefensibly bad, right?
I absolutely agree with you. And the Titans are not showing signs of being better. There are rumors that they are interviewing Matt Nagy for offensive coordinator. So listen, if you are in the Tennessee Titans organization, listen to me right now. Matt Nagy is one of the best coaches in the NFL. It is in the best interest of the Titans to hire Matt Nagy and take him from Kansas City.
as an unbiased viewer, I think Matt Nagy shouldn't have a job. Like
Yes. If you're
for
just
those of
watching
you
this
who
to
can't,
learn about
yeah.
sports, don't hire Matt Nagy.
Yeah, for those of you who may not be as initiated into the sports world just yet, Matt Nagy he's a domestic terrorist. He's awful. Get rid of him. He genuinely if it weren't for Patrick Mahomes, Matt Nagy would be viewed as one of the worst assistant coaches in the league. They scored 1 touchdown in the games following Patrick Mahomes' injury. 1. There are teams that had backup quarterbacks that actually performed well. And
it was a one rushing touchdown. It was a rushing touchdown, right?
I believe so. I believe it was Kareem Hunt or something like that.
Yeah.
It just unbelievably bad. Like, I don't know. Matt Nagy, the fact that he's not gone, that's something that I really appreciate about the Detroit Lions. If we're going to talk brief tangent about coordinators, they instantly fired first-year coordinator John Morton, and they were the 5th highest scoring offense in football. It takes balls to get rid of a guy who technically coordinated a top 5 scoring offense. But every Lions fan knows that there were deep-rooted schematic issues with the way that Morton, I wouldn't say schematic issues, more coaching issues with that offense, specifically game flow and play calling that Morton was responsible for. It was so bad that Dan Campbell took back over play calling duties mid-season. So that's another coach that did get fired. And I think the Chiefs should do the same and potentially hire someone like Kevin Stefanski, who the Browns just let go from their organization as the head coach.
He is not the number 1 guy. Honestly, I'm not even sure if he's the top 3 guy in the top 3 that I would want to bring in for the Chiefs. But for a generic NFL team that's not the Chiefs, I do think Stefanski would be a good offensive coordinator for a team. I just want my Chief-rooted guys back. But outside of that, yeah, he's another guy that has shown, kind of like Brian Dable. He's a guy that has shown he's not capable of being a really good head coach, but he is capable of being a really good offensive coordinator.
And for those that maybe listen to the podcast and may not totally understand the difference between like a head coach and an offensive coordinator, what makes somebody a great coordinator but not a good head coach? Like, what is the difference between those guys?
For me, it's kind of, I mean, I'm in education, I'm a teacher. It's kind of the difference between a teacher and a principal. You might be really good at coordinating your small group, but when you get to a leadership role, it's a whole different ballgame. I can speak about that as a staff at Arrowhead as well. I can hang out with my fans as an usher and call for a puke spill every now and then, but leading is a whole lot different. I've got staff underneath me. I've got to deal with every single problem, not just a little problem here and there on in the wide receiver room, and organizationally and leadership is really what it comes down to. Your coordinators need to know your X's and the O's, and your head coaches need to know about the people too.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to put it. And I would expand just a little bit. This is more of personal preference too, because everything you said, I'll echo. I also like my coordinators to be just football psychos, just like living in the film room, living in their playbook, living in football theory and modern evolution of game planning, i.e., guys like Ben Johnson or even Eric Bieniemy to a certain extent when he was with the Chiefs, or Kyle Shanahan. Like those guys, you just want those minds that understand football at a level that we can't quite understand. And it's very rare to find one of those minds that also knows how to lead men. Like that's an extremely rare crossover. I mean, you're talking just a few coaches each century that have that true crossover. So that's why the positions exist, right? You have guys that are football psychos that can draw up your plays, and you have guys that can lead the men. And so it's tough to find. And a lot of these teams, right? I mean, the Browns, I think, is a good example. They saw Kevin Stefanski's offensive scheme when he was a coordinator. I'm like, man, if only we could have that. Guess what? You can. You just have to hire him away as a head coach and hope that he can lead men. Turns out he couldn't. But I would like the Lions to go for Kevin Stefanski, maybe. I think at least give him an interview, see what happens.
Yeah. And I'd be okay if the Chiefs got him, but again, I want my Chief roots guys back.
Right. And all of these coaches were on teams that comfortably missed the playoffs. Like none of these teams were really in contention. There is one final coach, though, of a team that was a wide right field goal away from moving on in the AFC playoff picture. And he's a tenured coach of a well-respected organization, and that's John Harbaugh. Wow. I didn't expect this.
I'm shocked that they fired John Harbaugh. That was completely out of right field to me. I know the Ravens haven't lived up to the expectations of getting Lamar a Super Bowl, but at the same time, I'm worried if I was a Ravens fan, I would be worried that they gave up not superstar coach anymore, but they're going to give up still a good coach, and they're going to bring in a guy that is not a leader of men.
Yeah, I mean, imagine how different
like a good coordinator that's going to be a bad head coach type of situation and just make the situation so much worse in Baltimore. That's what I'd be worried about.
Yeah, 100%. And there's rumors that Todd Monken, the offensive coordinator of the Ravens, is also going to be gone. Todd Monken is one of the premier minds offensively in football, in my opinion. I think that he would be one of the top choices of any team who's offensive coordinator needy. My team, I would like him. So I in losing Harbaugh and Monken at the same time, it only exacerbates what you just said about how valuable these guys are, and what I just said about how rare these guys are. The leaders of men archetype coach that have won a Super Bowl, you can count on one hand, and Harbaugh's one of them. And now he's available. And now we're getting to our fun activity that I've been wanting to get to all episode. Ready?
Real quick, I want to say one last thing about Harbaugh. I want to know, is this true? I saw a stat that says there are 6 head coaching vacancies, and Harbaugh got 7 calls about being a head coach.
How did you predict my activity? That's my activity. My activity is there are 6 openings, 7 if you include the Ravens, but there are 6 non-Ravens openings. And Adam Schefter reported that
so it is true.
Harbaugh's agent reported 7 calls of interest, which means there is one team with a head coach under contract that said, Hey, is Harbaugh willing to come to insert team here? And so our activity is to bloviate and speculate about which team with a current head coach under contract could possibly want a guy like John Harbaugh to rein in their unruly squad.
There are 2 teams that immediately jump to my mind. But there's one team that I would bet money on if I was legally allowed to bet, because I'm an NFL employee. I'm not allowed to, and I don't bet. But there is one team that if I could bet, that I would bet that it is. Do you want to share yours first or mine?
I have a feeling I know which team you're going to say. And so my guess for team that inquired is the Jets. It's a dark horse. It's a dark horse.
It's one of the teams I thought of.
But if you're the Jets and you just had a catastrophic failure of a season where your team recorded 0 interceptions for the first time in the Super Bowl era, the fly zone. Sorry to my Jets fans viewers out there. Holy smokes, that's terrible. I'd be calling the phone to get Harbaugh. He's the best. He would be instantly the best coach the Jets have ever had. So I would call, but I have a feeling that I know what your team is. I'm not gonna spoil it. I'll let you do it. What do you got?
It's the Miami Dolphins.
Yes, there it is.
It's the Miami Dolphins. We even talked about it earlier, as we expect Mike McDaniels to be gone. I predict that the new general manager is going to come in, whoever and whenever that is, and make his hire. The owner is going to let the GM make that hire. But if Harbaugh is available, kind of like the Chiefs, if I'm not mistaken, hired Andy Reid before they got John Dorsey, because it's Andy Reid, a veteran coach that just kind of had his time run out in Philadelphia. John Harbaugh is kind of that same guy. He's gotten to a Super Bowl. In this case, he's won a Super Bowl, and his time has just kind of run out in Baltimore. But it's still John Harbaugh. Go get that guy if you can. If you're Miami,
I mean, the parallels are beyond scary at this point because like he's so similar. They're similar in age. They have similar experience. Harbaugh has a win, which is something Andy Reid couldn't get done until he had Patrick Mahomes, right? So Harbaugh won it with Flacco. Come on. Talk about a team that needs some help. I think he could instantly elevate that defense in Miami, which has been a problem. I feel like they have a lot of talent. They just can't quite get it right. The offense, I don't think, has ever been a problem. I think Mike McDaniels is a genius. I think Tua has a lot of issues in that offense, but the GM that extended Tua Tagovailoa to a contract equal to the worth of Jared Goff is now gone. So we'll have to see what the new GM thinks of Tua Tagovailoa. And I think that if you have the opportunity to bring in a guy like Harbaugh, use the Chiefs as an example of how high your ceiling could be, because it all starts with the coach.
And kind of speaking of Harbaugh, since we're still on that topic, I just want to point out the Ravens' last few seasons to just show how baffling Harbaugh is. So we mentioned Andy Reid. When Andy Reid was fired from Philadelphia, he had not made the playoffs in 2 years, and he had not won a playoff game in, I think, 3 or 4 years. Okay, so that's kind of where Andy Reid was when he got fired from Philadelphia, and the Chiefs immediately went and got him. Here's the Ravens. They went 8-9 this year, missed the playoffs. Last year, they won the division with a 12-5 record, won a playoff game, and then lost in the divisional round by 2 points. The prior year, they did even better, 13-4, had the MVP on their team, won a playoff game, and lost the AFC Championship by 1 score. 2022, they got second in the division, and they lost in the opening round. Missed the playoffs in 2021, won a playoff game in 2022 or in 2020. And then we're just kind of going back even farther, really. But like, they've been so good outside of this year. And Lamar Jackson was injured for a handful of games. I just don't understand how he got fired.
Not only was he injured, when he returned, he was clearly a shell of himself. As Lamar Jackson fantasy owners know, the dude didn't play good. And they were almost winning in spite of him in some of those games. And a lot of them they actually lost, but some of them they won in spite of him. I just don't know how you can pin that on Harbaugh and how you can justify letting go.
There had to have been issues with Harbaugh and the general manager. Because I think back to, again, I know way too much about the Chiefs. Marty Schottenheimer, a former head coach of the Chiefs. Later on in his career, he coached for the San Diego Chargers. Marty Schottenheimer and the San Diego Chargers did not get along. And so Marty Schottenheimer in 2009 got the number 1 seed. They won 13 games, got the number 1 seed in the AFC. Got fired that offseason.
Yeah.
Because the GM and him didn't get along.
So
I had to be something like that, right?
I have some insight onto what it could be specifically. According to an NFL insider, a key pressure point in the relationship between John Harbaugh and the upper management was his refusal to entertain any discussion about letting go of offensive coordinator Todd Monken, who is just right-hand man of Harbaugh and a very talented, clearly offensive head coach or offensive coordinator. And Harbaugh wouldn't even entertain because maybe there
it is.
And so they just said
between him and the GM.
only way to get rid of Monken, and that's why reports are saying that he's gone too, was to get rid of Harbaugh. So now I fully expect, I'm making my prediction now. Guess who's legally allowed to bet? This guy. I would put money on Todd Monken being on a new team come next season because the organization doesn't want him. And Harbaugh was going to stand by his guys. Another reason you should hire Harbaugh, by the way, because he's respected by his staff and his players to a degree that's both Harbaughs are, So it's baffling to me that's the decision. Like, all right, that's the hill you want to die on, right? Go for it, die.
Yeah,
right?
absolutely nuts. But A wide right kick kicks Harbaugh and the Ravens out, and it puts Pittsburgh in as the 4 seed.
Speaking of Pittsburgh, here they are. Division winners with Aaron Rodgers as their quarterback. And we have a fun little activity for you guys here to conclude the episode. We're going to do a playoff bracket, one for each of us here. So I can let Tyler do his first, and then I'll finish it off. We don't have any games of the week for you guys because every one of these games is a must-watch game. Don't miss any of them.
Must-watching and capable of watching. There is no overlap.
Yeah,
it's not so like great about the NFL playoffs.
Right? It's not like the NFL scheduled over the Rams-Panthers game because the Panthers are garbage and have the lowest point differential in a playoff team in years. No, this one stands all by itself. You could watch it for 3 hours uninterrupted by any other football. So make sure you watch.
And it's how you're going to kick off that. It's how you're going to kick off this postseason too.
That's right. It is the start.
I'm picking Rams. I don't think there's many people that are picking the Panthers. I'm picking the Rams here. The Saturday night game is, the oldest rivalry in football. Packers versus Bears. I don't think the Bears are contenders, but I am picking them as divisional contenders. I'm picking the Bears here. I think it's in Chicago. Ben Johnson, being a former Lion, hates the Packers just as much as those Bears fans.
He does.
They're going to pull out all the stops, and this will be Chicago's Super Bowl, which kind of tells me what you think, which tells you what I think is going to happen in the next round. But this is going to be Chicago's Super Bowl, and I think they're going to win it. Going into Sunday, the afternoon slate is Bills-Jaguars. I have Bills. Okay, hey, let's go Buffalo to the divisional round over the Jaguars.
It'll be a good one, though.
The middle slate for Sunday is 49ers, Eagles. This is going to be such a good game. There's a lot of stats saying that like West Coast teams do so much better when they face East Coast teams. But I do think the Eagles are not going to make the Super Bowl, but similar to the Bears, I think they're going to move on from the wild card round at least. So that does in fact leave Sunday night is Chargers versus Patriots. I do have the Patriots winning. I think that might be one of our. I think it's going to be closer than a 2-7 game should, but I do have the Patriots winning. And then Monday night, the Steelers have not lost a Monday night game in Pittsburgh since 1991, but they are going to lose now. I am picking the Texans. I don't think the Steelers will do well. Division round, that schedule is, of course, TBD, very much based on how things actually shake up. However, what we then have is yep, that's right. Bills Broncos, that is the correct matchup. I've got Bills. I think the Broncos are absolute frauds. I think they're going to be one and done, whether it's to the Bills, the Jaguars, whoever. Broncos, I just don't have winning that game regardless. I do have the Patriots winning their divisional game. I do think it's going to be a AFC East rivalry for the championship. On the NFC side, I've got the Seahawks over the Rams. I think that home field advantage and extra rest is going to be very good for Seattle. And this is where Chicago dies. I don't want to put the Eagles in the conference championship. I don't think they're the second best team in the NFC, but the way the matchups are going, I've got Eagles over Bears. AFC championship does have the slate first. Hey, let's go Buffalo to the Super Bowl this time. I'm picking Buffalo. If Buffalo doesn't have Patrick Mahomes to stomp on their feet, I think they're going all the way. And I think it's going to be Bills versus Seahawks in the Super Bowl. And my champion is Buffalo Bills.
There you go.
Buffalo Bills make me want to shout.
There we go. I love it.
Despite me wearing constant Chiefs stuff right now.
Yeah, you're like quadruple red here, which that's great. So I'm pulling up my predictions now because I have them in our pick'em this year, Tyler, which I won. Sorry, not sorry.
Zach did win Zach, me, and another friend of mine do a pick 'em every year. This is our third year of it. After winning the last 2 years, I figured I'd let Zach have one, so he did win this year.
Very kind of you after what was a very depressing Lions season. But of course, I will also be picking the Rams. I know the Panthers beat the Rams early this year, but if you watch that game, the amount of tomfoolery that had to occur for the Panthers to win that game, like as a box score watcher, you could probably be like, oh, the Panthers have a chance. There is zero chance of an upset here. Zero. I'm also picking the Packers to win. I think that the Chicago Bears.
Also,
I'm picking the Packers to win on Saturday night.
Okay. I had the Bears winning.
Right. Sorry.
Okay.
I'm also moving on to pick the Packers, I guess I should say.
Oh, I gotcha.
Because I like you said, the Bears are fraudulent. But I think that they at least are worse than the Packers, and I think that the Packers are going to have a lot of tricks up their sleeve. And Matt LaFleur has a good record in the wild card round. He tends to get to the divisional, and that's when he chokes it. And I think that he will. But moving on to the Bills-Jags game, Jaguars, baby. I think the Bills get bounced. This Bills team has some weaknesses that concern me, and I think Jacksonville is very spicy this year. They kind of remind me of the Commanders last season in the sense that they went all the way to the conference championship, right? Beat some teams they weren't supposed to beat. That's how the Jaguars are feeling to me right now. Like they have a lot of pieces. I'm going with Patriots and Texans as well. Patriots are clear and better team in almost every position group than the Chargers, and the Texans should wallop the Steelers. The Steelers are so bad. They are so bad. They should not be here. And they almost always get bounced in these situations. Like look back at that Chiefs-Steelers playoff game, which was Roethlisberger's last, I think, right? Just they were obliterated. That's what's going to happen here. And then my final game, I don't know why I skipped these guys, but it's going to be 49ers. The Eagles just don't have what it takes offensively to keep up with Christian McCaffrey and Brock Purdy. So now moving on, I think that Houston should win this one. I agree with you that Denver is not as consistent, and I think this is where their luck runs out. I don't think that they deserve the number one pick. I think that should probably have gone to New England, who I have winning this one. So I have Houston, Patriots. I have Seattle, Rams, rematch again, which would be such a fun conference championship. Stafford versus Darnold. Man, it would be so much fun. And I have Stafford going back to the bowl to face off against the Patriots. And then I have Stafford winning number 2 and retiring.
Okay. I actually like that. You mentioned concerns with Buffalo. I, too, have a lot of concerns. I've just always kind of felt that it could very much be Allen's year. With Seattle and the Rams, obviously I had Seattle there, but it very easily could be the Rams just as much. The Rams look so good, and I think they're very underrated just because of how good that division is. So, I mean, I can very much see it being a Super Bowl 53 rematch here with this time it going to the Rams over the Patriots.
Yeah, 2 different quarterbacks, same teams, and a different result. So I think that this is one of the more interesting NFL playoffs in recent memory. Number one, because neither our teams are involved. So we're obviously like looking at it from a different perspective, right? When the Chiefs are involved, you think, well, what is the Chiefs' best path? And when I'm involved, I'm just on my knees praying that the Lions do it this year. You have the the comfort and the privilege to be a little bit more analytical about the playoffs. I just start getting superstitious. So, not that you're not, but yeah, no, it'll be a very interesting postseason, and we'll have to wait till next year to break down our teams. Hopefully, if they both make it.
Yeah, I'm excited for this playoffs too because this is the first year that we don't have a dynasty in the playoffs.
Right.
All the way the last 7 years the Chiefs have been in it, and prior to that, we're rooting against Tom Brady's dynasty.
Yeah.
So this is the first time that we do not have a dynasty entering the playoffs. We of course have Jalen Hurts, the reigning Super Bowl MVP right now, but I mean they're not
Fakest
a dynasty
MVP.
by any means. Yeah,
Jalen Hurts is so. I hope that the discourse around Jalen Hurts will somehow revert back to being normal because him winning a Super
Jalen
Bowl was bad.
Hurts. Jalen Hurts was the best player in that game, but he was not the best player on the Eagles by any means. He
Disagree.
was not the reason that they got.
He was not the. He threw an interception. He was not good. The best player in that on that team, you could argue, was Cooper DeJean. Truly, like there were.
It's fair.
You could pick
That's
any
fair.
one defender that participated in what was a brilliant scheme to shut down Patrick Mahomes. You could pick any defender over Hurts, in my opinion, in that game.
It's fair.
But
we'll see how it shapes up. Next week,
indeed.
we will have a breakdown of the first ever That's DPI episode during the playoffs, along with probably at least one controversial playoff call.
I can't imagine there isn't one. But thank you all for tuning in. Enjoy the playoffs, watch every game, and come back to us with your takes about our playoff bracket and who you think the final caller was for John Harbaugh. Let us know down in the comments. Don't forget to subscribe for more playoff and ref content, and we'll see you next week.
Appreciate you guys.